Take a breath. Just pause for a moment before you keep scrolling, because if you ended up here today, that was not random at all. It was not some coincidence or a glitch in the feed. Something deep inside you was searching for this message, and somehow it found its way to you. So stay with me for a little while. I want you to think about this special person right now. Let their face come clearly into your mind, and notice what happens inside your body when it does. That gentle pull in your heart, that blend of warmth and longing and something you cannot quite describe. That feeling is not confusion. That is your heart recognizing something your mind is still trying to fully understand. Because this person is not just someone who came into your life by chance. On a deeper level, something within you already knows them well. And I understand how tiring it can be to carry a love this large when everything around it feels so uncertain. All those nights you lay awake holding it quietly inside, wondering if you are reading too much into the signs, wondering if any of it even matters in the end. It does matter greatly. You are not being naive or silly. You are not being too emotional or excessive. You are someone who is right in the middle of something that is going to become very meaningful. And that is exactly why it feels this difficult right now. If you feel deeply connected to someone even when it is painful, hit like so this message reaches more people. What makes these kinds of connections so powerful is that they do not just touch the surface of who we are. They reach straight into the parts of us we have spent years trying to control, hide, or simply survive around. People often believe love is supposed to arrive like a relief, like finally reaching calm water after years of struggling to stay afloat. But the connections that truly change us usually arrive more like a storm before they bring peace. They shake loose everything that was buried under old coping habits, emotional protection, pride, fear, and survival patterns. And at first, that shaking can feel more like falling apart than growing. When someone enters your life and touches places nobody else could reach, your protective strategies suddenly stop working. The person who always gave too much finally realizes how exhausted they are from constantly proving their value and sacrificing their own needs. They begin to question why they believed closeness had to be earned through endless emotional labor and patience. This realization hurts deeply because it forces them to face the painful truth that they were taught love is not guaranteed just for simply existing. At the same time, the other person faces an equally frightening reality of having survived by staying emotionally distant. Closeness became linked to past pain, betrayal, or loss, causing their nervous system to treat true intimacy as a danger. They pull back not because the connection lacks meaning, but because the intense feelings feel too overwhelming to handle. On the surface, it looks like an unequal situation where one person chases while the other creates space and seems overwhelmed. Beneath the surface, it is actually two wounded people reacting differently to the exact same fear of being rejected or not being enough. The one who pursues believes love will disappear without constant effort, making silence unbearable. But they must learn that abandoning themselves is too high a price for connection. Their worth is not measured by how much pain they can tolerate for someone else. Comment "Destined" if you believe this person is truly meant for you, even though things feel completely stuck right now. And the person who pulls back often carries the opposite wound. Somewhere inside them is the belief that if someone gets too close, they will eventually lose themselves, disappoint the other person, or become emotionally trapped. So they instinctively create distance the moment things become real. Yet that space rarely brings peace. It usually brings guilt, confusion, loneliness, and an even deeper awareness of how much they actually care. Because avoiding openness protects them from rejection for a while, but it also keeps them from receiving the love they secretly long for. Healing is rarely graceful in the beginning. Sometimes it looks like confusion. Sometimes it looks like inconsistency, fear, emotional overwhelm, or long periods of silence while someone tries to understand themselves better. Growth often looks messy before it looks wise. The caterpillar literally dissolves inside the cocoon before becoming something new. Transformation has always required a kind of ending first. Not a physical ending, but the ending of old identities, defenses, and beliefs that can no longer survive inside deeper love. That is why these connections can feel almost unbearable at times. They show contradictions within us. They reveal how badly we want closeness while also showing us how afraid we are of it. They force us to recognize the difference between attachment and genuine love. Attachment says, "Please do not leave me because I need you to complete what is missing inside me." Genuine love eventually says, "I want to meet you fully while also learning how to remain whole within myself." And that shift changes everything. But here is the part I really need you to hear clearly. This is the piece most people miss. In every one of these connections, there is a turning point, and it does not arrive with some dramatic moment or a long overdue conversation. It does not happen because they finally say the thing you have been waiting to hear. It happens because of a decision you make quietly inside yourself. The decision to stop waiting to be chosen and to start genuinely choosing yourself instead. And when that shift happens, something in the whole dynamic begins to change. Not because love operates like magic, but because whatever energy you bring into the space between two people, it lands. When you stop reaching towards someone from a place of fear or need, you stop being something they feel the urge to move away from. Type yes if you are ready to hear what needs to happen first before you can be together. And for maybe the first time, they are left sitting alone with what they actually feel about you. Not what they are afraid of, not what they have been avoiding, but what is actually there, and what is there has never gone away. I want you to trust that deeply. Let me be honest with you about something, and I need you to actually sit with this instead of just reading past it quickly. Everything you have been through in this waiting, every single moment of it has meant something important. Not 1 second of it has been wasted. I know it might feel that way sometimes. I know there are moments where you look back at all the love you have poured out and wonder if it just disappeared into empty air, if it landed anywhere at all, if any of it was even worth it. But here is what is true. Love does not just vanish. It does not go nowhere. Every quiet evening spent thinking of someone who is not beside you, and every night you fall asleep holding feelings that have nowhere to go, is not in vain. That love is real and active, shaping and deepening you into someone capable of holding something truly extraordinary when it finally arrives. When you cry because something so right causes so much pain, it is never a sign of weakness or fragility. Those tears are your heart being completely unwilling to abandon something it recognizes as sacred. That is a rare kind of faithfulness. Most people find a reason to walk away when things get this hard and uncertain, protecting themselves before they can be hurt further. It would have been so easy for you to shut down, build a wall, and decide that loving this deeply was just too costly. So many people get hurt or left waiting long enough that they eventually go quiet and close themselves off because the price feels too high. You had every reason to make that same choice, and nobody would have blamed you for it. Yet you stayed open when closing was easier, and you stayed soft when hardening was right there as an easy option. In a world that rewards being guarded and detached, your refusal to go that route is a form of quiet power, not a vulnerability. Loving completely without calculating the return is an incredibly rare quality, and it is exactly the kind of foundation from which a lasting love is built. You chose to stay, feel, and keep caring when everything around you gave you reason to close the door. And that is everything. But to love someone through confusion, through distance, through seasons where nothing is clear and the silence stretches long, and to do it without becoming bitter, that takes something that cannot be faked and cannot be learned from the outside. You either have that capacity or you do not. And you do. That is not a small thing about you. It might actually be the most important thing about you. And it is precisely that quality that is leading you somewhere real, not toward a relationship that keeps you permanently off balance, not always trying to read between the lines, always wondering where you stand, always bracing yourself for the next moment of uncertainty, not toward a love that makes you feel like your emotions are somehow too large for the space you have been given. You are headed toward something that fits, something that does not require you to manage yourself down or dim any part of who you are. A love that feels the way a deep breath feels after you have been holding tension in your chest for too long. That is not a poetic exaggeration. That is genuinely where this is going if you keep doing what I am about to tell you. So what does that actually look like in practice? What do you do today, tomorrow, in the days that follow with all of this? Here is the most important and most difficult thing, and I am not going to soften it to make it sound simpler than it is. You turn toward yourself deliberately, consciously, with real intention, not as a performance of moving on, not as a way of signaling something or playing a long game. Genuinely, honestly, you redirect the energy you have been spending outward and you bring it back home to yourself. You start asking yourself a question that maybe you have not asked in a long time. Share this video with someone who is stuck in a confusing but powerful connection. Maybe a question that feels almost strange in your mouth. What do I actually need right now? Not what do they need? Not what could I do or say or become that might shift things between us? Not what would make them come back or open up or finally understand. What do you need? What would feel good to you today? What part of your own life have you been neglecting because you were so focused on something that was always slightly out of reach? You start filling those places. You start saying yes to yourself with at least a fraction of the enthusiasm you have been saying yes to everyone else with. The things you put off because you were waiting for life to feel more settled first, you start doing some of those things. The friendships you let drift a little because your emotional energy was elsewhere, you reach back towards some of those people. The parts of yourself that you put on a shelf because you were so absorbed in this situation, you take them back down and you dust them off. None of this is about pretending the love is not there. None of it is about forcing yourself to feel something you do not, or stop feeling something you do. It is simply about expanding your life back out to its full size, so that you are not living in a small space built entirely around one person and one outcome. And here is what happens when you genuinely start doing that. Something shifts in how you carry yourself. It is not a dramatic overnight change. It is quieter than that, but it is real. You stop feeling like an incomplete sentence waiting for its ending. You stop feeling like you are in a permanent holding pattern, like your life cannot fully begin until this particular thing resolves itself. You start feeling like a whole person, like someone whose life has weight, color, and forward movement, regardless of what any one relationship is or is not doing. And that feeling, that groundedness, that sense of being rooted in your own existence rather than suspended in someone else's uncertainty, it changes your presence. People around you feel it in ways they might not even be able to put into words. There is a quality to someone who is genuinely at home in themselves, and it is magnetic in the truest sense. It draws things toward it rather than chasing after them. And the person you have been loving through all of this, they will feel it too, more than anyone else. They will feel the difference. This is not a strategy. I want to be really clear about that, because the last thing I want is for you to hear this as some kind of technique for getting a particular outcome. It is not. It is simply the truth of what happens when someone stops relating to another person from a place of lack and starts relating from a place of fullness. The whole dynamic breathes differently. There is room for something genuine to happen that could not happen before. Now, I want to talk about them for a moment because I think there is something you might need permission to understand. They are not the bad person in any of this. I know there have probably been moments where the hurt made it tempting to see them that way, where the distance or the silence or the inconsistency made you want to write a cleaner story where someone is clearly in the wrong. But they are not a cold person. They are not someone who is simply indifferent to you. What you have been reading as distance is actually something much more complicated than that. It is someone who, somewhere along the way, usually long before you ever showed up in their life, came to understand love as something dangerous, something that costs more than you can afford, something that opens you up to a level of pain that is not worth the risk. They did not decide this consciously. No one does. It gets built into you by the experiences that shape you before you are even old enough to name what is happening. And so what looks to you like them pulling away is actually them managing a fear that has been with them for a very long time. Comment healing if this message is reaching you deep in your chest right now. They think about you in the spaces between the distractions, when it is quiet enough that they cannot avoid what is actually going on inside them. You are there. They feel the absence of your energy, even in the moments when they are the ones who created that absence. There is a tension in them around you that does not go away just because they are not in contact with you. Because what they feel is not really about closeness or distance. It is about something much deeper that they have not yet finished working through. And that unfinished work is not yours to do for them. You cannot do it for them, no matter how much you want to, no matter how clearly you can see what they need, no matter how much love you are willing to offer as a way through it. That is their road to walk. What you can do, the one genuinely powerful thing available to you here, is to not let their fear write the story of your worth, to refuse to absorb their unresolved pain as evidence of something lacking in you, to hold yourself with such genuine dignity and such steady love that when they do finally move through what has been holding them back, what they encounter is you at your fullest. Not made smaller by waiting, not emptied out by longing, not desperate for the validation you should have been giving yourself all along, but standing completely in your own light, grounded, whole, and genuinely ready. Close your eyes for just a second and imagine a morning that is closer than you think. You wake up, and the first thing you notice is that the weight is gone. That particular heaviness that has been sitting in your chest, the one that has been there so long you almost stopped noticing it. It is not there anymore. Not because your feelings have disappeared, or because you stopped caring about this person, or because you forced yourself into some state of detachment. It is gone because the love finally has a home. Because what was unresolved is now resolved. Because the thing that was always meant to happen has happened, and it is no longer sitting in the future waiting to become real. It simply is real. Imagine turning and looking at this person, actually looking at their face and seeing something there that you have not seen before or have not seen in a long time. Not the hesitation, not the conflict behind their eyes, not that particular quality of someone who is present in body but held back somewhere inside. Instead, you see peace. The quiet, settled peace of someone who made a full choice and is not second-guessing it, not managing it, not holding anything back, someone who is just there with you completely. Imagine what it would feel like to have a love that does not visit your thoughts at 2 in the morning as a source of anxiety, where you do not lie awake turning things over and over, searching for what you missed or what you should have said differently or what might be coming next. A love where your nervous system actually gets to rest, where you are not constantly watching for signals or preparing yourself for disappointment or bracing against an uncertainty that never quite goes away. A love where the question of whether you are enough is simply not a question anymore, not because you finally convinced someone of your value, but because you are with someone for whom your value was never in question, where you are seen fully. All the complicated, layered parts of you, the parts you are proud of and the parts you are still working on, and chosen for all of it, not in spite of it, for it. That is not a story you invented to comfort yourself. That is the natural destination of two people who each took their own healing seriously, who stopped arriving at each other carrying old wounds and old fears and expecting the other person to fix what life had broken in them, who instead came together as people who had done enough of their own inner work to be genuinely available for something real. That is what is being built right now in the uncertainty and the difficulty and the waiting of this exact season. Type me if you have been waiting and working on yourself for exactly this kind of love. Every day you choose to take care of yourself instead of dissolving into worry. You lay a piece of the foundation for lasting love. Do not let the difficulty of this middle phase convince you that your destination is not real. The middle is always the hardest, most uncertain part, where it is difficult to hold on to your direction, but this stage is entirely temporary and has an end, whereas the true love you are moving toward does not. You are not late, you are not broken, and you are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be, becoming exactly who you need to become for the love that is already making its way toward you.